meditation. Please be seated. Honorable members, before we proceed with the order, I would like to bring to your attention that the Honorable Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition had requested permission from the Speaker to display articles in the chamber, which are of particular importance to his budget speech. In terms of the rules, articles are on occasion brought into the chamber if they are non-threatening objects and with prior approval of the Speaker. In this regard, the Minister was granted permission. I now ask the Secretary to read the order.
Debate on vote number 39, Trade, Industry and Competition Appropriation Bill.
I now invite to the podium the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition. The Honorable Minister.
House Chairperson, honorable members, fellow South Africans. I stand before this House at a time of great uncertainty and crises for the world, and especially for the developing economies such as South Africa. Context always matters, and this context matters greatly to how we govern and how we think about our economy and about our place in the world. As the President of the World Bank described it, and I quote, "Rather than gaining ground, the poor are being left behind in a global tragedy of inequality. This drastic narrowing of economic and social progress is creating a time of upheaval in economics, politics, and geopolitical relationships." Honorable members, we have to contend with very heavy headwinds. And despite the challenges, South Africa is making strides in its recovery from the impact of COVID-19. GDP has recovered from the heavy blow to economic output that the pandemic brought. And UCT research shows that 95% of the formal sector jobs have now been recovered. This is good news. But the impact of the war in Ukraine and the energy shortages have had numerous negative consequences for trade, for the cost of living, and for the investment environment. And the impact of climate change is being felt more and more by people around the world, both in developed and developing economies. This polycrisis, as some commentators describe it, requires a steady hand on the tiller, agility, and calm but determined resolve. We have to put our heads down and find a way to battle through the storm. In the past few years, our central mission at the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition has been to build on our country's innate resilience so as to nurture a more resilient economy, one that both grows and transforms. What that means is that we need to grow our economy, but to do so in ways that benefit the many and not just the few. In the past, when the economy has grown, it has tended to favor those with existing wealth and privilege. That is unsustainable. The inequality gap gets wider. We have to close it. We have to create economic opportunities for those who have not benefited in the past. They must not be left behind. In this year's budget speech, Chairperson, I want to tell the House that despite extraordinary headwinds and challenges, we have made considerable progress with pursuing the goals of growth and transformation, and have laid substantial foundations for economic recovery based on increased investment, industrialization, localization, and trade. This represents, honorable members, a quiet revolution in the way that we as government contribute to and influence the market economy on behalf of the interests of all who live in South Africa. This is not a technical exercise. The economy has a very human face. When the economy struggles, people suffer. When it grows and transforms, then more people can thrive. Over the past 12 months, I have told Parliament the stories of South African workers, of entrepreneurs, of industrialists, young people, women, black and white compatriots, whose stories illustrate the impact of our new way of doing things. These stories are set out in more than 150 case studies of real, tangible impact. Stories of people like Nokwazi Mbele, a young, vibrant program manager at a factory in Kwadukuza that makes wire harnesses for cars, supported by the Auto Master Plan. Sanele Lutuli, a production analyst producing pulp that will go into the making of viscose and pharmaceuticals, whose factory use a DTIC incentive. Mike Nkuna and Rashid Gutta, who both run their own furniture manufacturing businesses, and examples of Black industrialists now covered by a master plan. Neil Dupree of Mellovans and a team of innovators who design and produce a 3-wheeled electric vehicle being sold on our roads and exported to other countries, supported by the IDC. Nuclear engineer Dr. Amatsamela Masango, who manufactures electrical inverters and is also supported by the IDC. Disabled workers Kyle Turner and Tatum Bele, who works in a factory that makes plugs, which we supported to get offtake commitments from 2 large retailers. Trainees Nwabisa Bavuma and Garrison Kotze, who work at a company that make underwater LED lights and cameras that are used for the undersea cables that connect South Africa with the rest of the world. And Jeanette Hilton Gericke, the owner, and Roseanne Haynes, a sewing machinist, who work together in a DTIC-supported factory to make the jerseys for Bafana Bafana, the South African netball team. And I want to add the Stormers supporters for the rugby match on Saturday against the Irish Munsters at the Cape Town Stadium. Honorable members, later today, Deputy Minister Gina will speak to the practical reforms in how the DTIC work to enable government to transform people's lives. And we do this, Chairperson, because it's of people like those that I have mentioned that we do what we do. That's our purpose. Tomorrow at the NCOP, Deputy Minister Majola will outline the partnerships with provinces and local government and with partner countries on the African continent, showing how the DTIC is seeking to mobilize support within the country and across the African continent for a vision of growth and jobs. I will set out the progress we have made over recent years, and especially the past year, the obstacles that have held us back, and what we need to address, and our plans for the coming years. We are strengthening the foundations of growth and transformation through investment, industrial development, and trade. In 2019, honorable members, we announced the reimagined industrial strategy. In 2020, we used it to focus on COVID-19 industrial products, manufacturing billions of rands of hand sanitizers and ventilators and vaccines, masks, anesthetics, and other products for our own market, but also for exports. In 2021, we published our policies on trade, competition, and localization, and we made significant progress with the master plans and with other sector pacts. In 2022, in the first part of this year, we focused on investment, on localization, on trade, on job creation, and on a just energy transition and its potential to catalyze what we regard as a whole economy transformation. First, Chairperson, investment is the lifeblood of growth. We have reported to Cabinet a number of investment projects that had significantly positive effects in the last year. They include the opening of the Hesto Harness Factory with 4,000 jobs in Kwadukuza, the launch of the new Isuzu D-Max Bakkie produced in the Eastern Cape, the opening of the Sapi Psycho facility with 5.5 billion rand in expected output and export, and the connection of the new Google undersea cable linking South Africa with West Africa and Europe to enable businesses and personal communication, search functions, financial transactions, and entertainment. Through successes as this, South Africa has exceeded its previous 5-year target for investment, with 1.5 trillion rand in new investment announced over this period. But if we are going to grow and transform, we need much more investment. Hence, we are setting a new annual stretch target of 400 billion rand in new investment pledges to be focused on by the DTIC group for this financial year. Some, I'm happy to say, which already we are securing. And this is in support of the broader 5-year plan the President announced to raise 2 trillion rand. The first investment conference to report against the new target will be convened by March 2024. Of course, while South Africa welcomes investment, we are determined to act against misuse of our financial markets to hide the proceeds of corruption and crime. Today, I published a set of regulations that require companies to determine the real identity of shareholders who hold more than 5% of a company's shares. This is also a step in addressing the concerns that has resulted in South Africa being grey-listed by the Financial Action Task Force. Second, Honourable Speaker, localization. Increasing local production and innovation is key to expanding the productive economy. Both investment and localization require additional funding and other support. Last year, the DTIC Group enabled 30 billion rand in various incentives and industrial funding to be made available to firms based in South Africa. We're making progress with efforts to beneficiate our raw material. A large new steel mill is under construction in Germiston that will use South African iron ore to produce flat steel products and bring competition to the upstream market, employing about 300 new workers from townships like Katlehong. 10 new factories are in full production in the new Tshwane SEZ, employing over 2,500 workers. And in March this year, we signed an MOU with the world's 4th biggest car maker, Stellantis, to explore possible local assembly of their vehicles. A number of successes were also achieved last year in products such as pharmaceuticals, glassware, food products, clothing, car components, and many others. A new cooking oil refinery will open in Richards Bay later this year. Building on this, we're setting a target of 40 billion rand in additional local output and commitments this year. The foundation for achieving this is the public-private partnerships through which businesses are committing large sums of money to boost local procurement. Companies who have made these commitments include Coca-Cola, Air Liquide, Shoprite Checkers, PepsiCo, Consol Glass, Heineken, Implats, Mercedes-Benz, VW, BMW, Ford, Nissan, Toyota, and Isuzu. Each and all of them deserve recognition and respect for showing such confidence in South Africa. We have built up a significant localization chest made up of 4 billion rand in localization and supplier development funds for our industrial sectors like green energy, equipment, food, and medical devices, and 19 billion rand in commitments to procurement in sectors such as auto components and mining supplies. These will all be actively used to help achieve the new goal for this year and beyond. Honourable members, these gains should not be underestimated. As I say, such investment is essential if our economy is to grow and transform. The fact that we've attracted such investment and built up this multi-billion rand localization resource chest is testimony to the fact that our investment appeal and economic potential remains clear and real, despite the challenges and the tough headwinds. Contrary to the doom and gloom merchants who seem to revel in their despondency and despair, there are sound grounds for hope that our economy can revive and prosper. Third, Chairperson, on the trade front, there are further reasons to be optimistic. Last year, South Africa crossed the 2 trillion rand export mark for the first time, selling agriculture and manufactured products and minerals that create jobs. South Africa has access to a number of markets on preferential terms. Despite the challenging global environment, we're setting a stretched target for this year of achieving 800 billion rand in global manufacturing exports and 8 billion rand in global business services exports. Trade with the rest of Africa has a great potential to expand the economy. Our target is to export at least 330 billion rand in manufactured goods to other African countries as the minimum goal, and we hope we can achieve more. In this past year alone, South Africa hosted the first AFC FTA Business Forum in Cape Town, bringing together businesses across the African continent. 2 trade-related protocols were completed. 88% of tariff lines have agreed rules of origin. And SACU finalized an offer for South Africa and 4 neighbors of products where we will open our markets under the new AFC FTA preferences. And of course, in the course of this financial year, we plan to start trading under the AFC FTA, building on the foundations laid in the last year. This is the next vital step in the project that will occupy a generation of compatriots to fully implement. These are important developments because they can boost our efforts to industrialize and beneficiate our minerals, create jobs for young people, and diversify our export markets in a turbulent and polarizing world. Our prosperity, Chairperson, is inextricably linked to that of the continent. State visits are now used to address economic opportunities more actively. Since last year's budget vote, 12 business forums with heads of state and investors were held, covering relations with countries to which we export about 300 billion rands worth of goods, sustaining almost 60,000 direct jobs. More than 1,000 delegates from South African firms participated in these forums. And this year, a further 10 new business forums will be held with great focus on follow-up opportunities for South African firms. We need to open market access for our products, and we'll engage with trading partners to open up those markets on citrus fruit, on horses, on game meat, and we'll seek to expand exports to the European Union and to the United Kingdom. In August, we will host the BRICS Business Forum to explore value-added exports and higher levels of investment. Given the importance of our relationship with the United States, we will step up our engagement with senior US government and business representatives to retain preferential access to trade under AGOA. This is an extraordinarily important opportunity to boost trade and jobs in spite of the challenges of the current environment. South Africa is well positioned to benefit from these different trading relationships. All of them are important to us, and each of them bring different kinds of value to our economy and to our people. Hence, we must ensure that they are all valued and respected and nurtured appropriately. In addition, in the past year, honorable members, we've adjusted tariffs, trade tariffs, to address the concerns of a number of sectors in products such as fridges, rubberized textile fabrics, chemicals, and many others. At times, the evidence leads us to decline a tariff increase application, as we did with frozen food. And when it is needed, we increase the level of protection, as we did in the case of cement, where dumping threatens large numbers of local jobs and firms. Critics sometimes claim that we intervene too much in the economy. Well, honorable members, if this is what intervention means, then I'm happy to plead guilty. We intervene to preserve fair trading relationships, to save
Honorable
businesses
Minister,
and to protect livelihoods.
Honorable Minister, I see there's a hand. I want to recognize the honorable member. Why are you rising?
Chair, I want to ask if the minister will take a very short question on something he's just raised. It's very short.
Honorable Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
Happy to do it right at the end of this time. And let me then continue, Chairperson. Fourth, I want to come to jobs, which is where the need to grow and transform matters most. While our efforts are focused on protecting existing jobs, given the size of the unemployment challenge, our industrial policy also seeks to identify new sectors with potential to grow, including in the medical value chain with medical devices, vaccines, cannabis for medical treatment, and other products. In the green value chain with solar and wind energy components, battery manufacturing, and electric vehicles. In the digital value chain with artificial intelligence applications, 3D printing, higher-end call centers, and attracting digital migrants. And in the food value chain, covering fruit and meat and nuts and oil and processed foods. For this year, the DTIC Group will have a target of mobilizing 35 billion rand in incentives, supplier development, and industrial funding to back firms that seek to modernize, to grow, and to expand their businesses. This is the foundation of sustainable job creation. We will seek to cover 1 million current workers with various DTIC measures covering from trade support, master plans, industrial incentives, or competition settlements. And we've set a new target of 100,000 new jobs through the Social Employment Fund and in manufacturing and productive services. To improve the ease of doing business, we're finalizing amendments to the Companies Act and changes to the ITAC processes, making it easier for companies to comply with legislation or access services so that we unlock more investment and growth. We spend a lot of time and energy listening to business representatives across our economy, and we've heeded criticism that in some cases there is too much regulation or the wrong type of regulation. Our job is to balance the need of particular businesses and sectors with a wider public interest, to strike the right balance so that the rules of the game serve both the need to grow the economy and to transform it. Fifth, Chairperson, energy is the foundation of modern industrialization and sustainable development. Energy shortages are extracting a high price in the short term. We recognize the hardship to businesses and to livelihoods. We have to put the electricity crisis behind us as quickly as possible. But if taken on with focus and vigor, the energy sector provides historic opportunities for a green transition and for an injection of capital and innovation in the economy. This is what we call the whole economy approach. The just energy transition focuses on three main areas: electricity, green hydrogen, and electric vehicles. These represent three major areas of our economy. They're three big levers. But the potential for a whole economy transformation goes beyond them. If we get the transition right, we will create new industrial value chains across our economy, benefiting people in parts of the country that have hitherto not had access to such development. That's the grand prize. We must align our strategy and our plans. We must remain loyal to the underlying principle of a just transition. We must rally many different sources of finance, local and international, public and private, and we must safeguard the investment with sound governance as well as robust and credible transparency measures. To address the challenge, we're supporting the National Action Plan on electricity, but we're also bringing in DTIC capacity, skills, and networks to support it. Today, I published 2 block exemptions for energy users and energy suppliers to enable collaboration to address energy shortages and share facilities, to coordinate maintenance, and to work together to increase supply of energy. I also published new energy standards today that will require energy-efficient light bulbs to be used in homes and offices. By the end of May, we will launch both an energy resilience fund of 1.3 billion rand in support available to enterprises, including SMMEs, to mitigate the impact of load shedding, and the new energy one-stop shop in the DTIC to assist with speeding up regulatory processes to accelerate private sector investment in electricity generation. And to support the transition to electric vehicle manufacturing, considerable technical work is being done and engagements held with National Treasury to expeditiously finalize an affordable and effective strategy. And we are confident we're close to completing that roadmap. This will be complemented by a new project we're launching next month to identify opportunities for battery production in South Africa. In support of this, we'll be working with partners, Finland, the United States, China, Belgium, Germany, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and the DRC on battery production value chains. We're playing our part in achieving the ambitious vision of the just energy transition, and we will continue to serve its reform agenda so that we can realize its full transformational potential. Chairperson, honorable members, this year's annual performance plan of the department sets out the key elements of the South African reimagined industrial policy that seeks to deepen the domestic market by growing jobs, increasing productivity, and undertaking other measures to improve equity and income distribution, but also to widen the market. For South African goods and services through a stronger focus on exports to the rest of the African continent and other rapidly growing economies. And it comes with supply side measures that seek to improve competitiveness, build resilience, and strengthen the agility and innovation at firm level. The APP is a significant step change that has been introduced with an industrial policy framework, clear targets on jobs, on investment, on exports, on localization. And to galvanize the department on these important drivers of growth, I have announced stretch targets today, higher than that set out in the APP. The master plans, already yielding good results in areas such as autos, clothing, and poultry, will be expanded with a stepped-up implementation of the furniture master plan. And to complement these, we will focus on greater economic inclusion. We'll achieve this with 5 focus steps: addressing inequality and extending worker ownership, confronting spatial inequity, promoting Black industrialists, advancing to a more open and competitive economy, and protecting consumers. 1, we will address inequality through greater worker shareholding in the firms that they work at, and finalizing the company's amendment bill in cabinet within 3 months, which deals with disclosure of wage differentials. Mandy Mtilwa, Kim Williams, and Mbata Mapetla are workers at PepsiCo, who are now shareholders in the company with thousands of other workers in the same company, following the agreement reached with the DTIC in merger proceedings. This past year alone, more than 100,000 workers became shareholders in the companies they work for, receiving dividends from the company and with shareholding worth more than 20 billion rand at no cost to them. For this year, we need a target. We're setting ourselves a target of 20,000 more workers to be covered by worker ownership schemes. And we're also targeting 7.5 billion rand in incentive support for programs in labor-absorbing sectors. And we're hosting a worker ownership conference and promoting worker directors on the boards of companies. 2, we will address spatial inequity through approving 15 billion rand in industrial incentives outside the 5 main metros. We'll publish our intention to establish an SEZ in Namakwa in the Northern Cape, which will open beneficiation opportunities in the area with large deposits of zinc, and which is in the proximity of the new green hydrogen hub of Boegoebaai. We're undertaking outreach visits to every district and metro in South Africa, taking the DTIC and partner departments' facilities to communities, including funding facilities, registering a company, tax registration, and small business support. And every senior DTIC official will be allocated a district to champion, so that the work of the department more strongly reflect the needs of communities and businesses. 3rd, we will promote Black industrialists through enabling 40 billion rand in annual industrial output and 23,000 total jobs to be sustained by Black industrialists. We'll host the next Black Industrialists Conference by February. We'll target 8 billion rand in support programs for SMMEs, firms owned by Black South Africans, women and youth, and we'll mobilize support through new agreements with the private sector that secures funding for economic inclusion. I'm happy to announce that an hour ago, the CEO of Citibank confirmed that they will make a grant of 200 million rand available for Black industrialists in the Vaal area as part of the equity equivalent investment program. And what all of this does, honorable members, it's repositioning the BEE strategy to focus on enabling higher contribution by Black industrialists to growth and to job creation. These firms are already involved in space technology, in food, in engineering, in car components, in poultry and sugar production, in clothing, in skincare, in pharmaceuticals, and in other sectors. And 4th, we will promote a more open economy by addressing the challenges of competition, high economic concentration, and the effects of market dominance. And we'll do so by releasing the results of the market inquiry on online services shortly. We're conducting new market inquiries into fresh food produce, media, and the steel industry. And we're gazetting block exemptions for small businesses from certain terms of the Competition Act from the 1st of August this year. Today, we publish new competition tribunal rules for market inquiries. And 5th and finally, we'll promote and protect consumer interests and address excessive pricing through actions by the competition, trade, and consumer regulators, combining the resources where it's necessary to do so. Conditions will be put to trade measures to address pricing challenges. Competition and consumer regulators will pursue cases against firms who charge excessive profits. Now, honorable members, I've spoken of the actions in the economy, of cars and food and pharmaceuticals, but the DTIC work is also about building the South African narrative, of telling a wider story, contemporary and historical. One film series supported by the DTIC, Shaka Ilembe, is due to be released shortly. It sets out the story of an extraordinary man and an early nation builder. That spirit is what should inspire us now. With heads down, we can settle through the storm and emerge stronger, yet more resilient, and with a sustainable and sturdy economy. In conclusion, Chairperson, despite all the obstacles in our path and the global headwinds that we face, we are making solid, steady progress. We are building a stable platform for our national revival in which the economy will both grow and transform. And given the tough context, I am especially proud of the efforts of our officials in partnership with businesses and workers. And the deputy ministers and I commend this budget vote to the House. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you. No, the Minister doesn't have any time left. He used these 30 minutes. He used these 30 minutes very effectively. The next speaker is the Honorable Hermans.
Honorable House Chairperson, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament, distinguished guests, Team DTIC sitting at the back, and fellow South Africans. We are meeting here today on the eve of Africa Day. This year, we celebrate the 60th anniversary of the OAU, now the AU, under the slogan, Our Africa, Our Future. During this month, we take the opportunity to celebrate our African diversity and successes and the wealth of opportunity this continent possesses. The theme of 2023 is accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area to bring greater prosperity to the continent. The Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry is tasked with overseeing the department, its 7 entities. It also oversees the BBBE Commission, which is a trading entity under the department. The committee has engaged the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition on its allocated financial resources and how these will be utilized in the 2023-2024 financial year. During its engagement with the department, the committee scrutinized the 10.92 billion budget allocation for the 2023-24 financial year. It focused on the allocation for the department's operations, incentives for business, and transfers to entities to carry out their mandates. The committee welcomed the continued use of the 3 succinct outcomes introduced in 2022, namely industrialization to promote jobs and rising incomes, transformation to build an inclusive economy, and thirdly, a capable state to ensure improved impact of public policies. These outcomes seek to address the country's long-standing challenges of slow economic growth, high unemployment, income inequalities, and high levels of poverty. Furthermore, the APP now also focuses on contributing towards the Energy Action Plan, as the Minister had indicated. The committee notes the plan to establish the Energy One-Stop Shop which will assist power generating companies to navigate different processes that apply in law and increase turnaround times by assisting investors to submit applications through a single window process to obtain all necessary government approvals. Unblocking teams are being established to assist investors. For the 2023-24 financial year, the Minister has responded to the committee's call for a more targeted and impactful approach to ensure that the triple challenges of unemployment, inequality, and poverty are addressed. In this regard, the department has amended its approach to performance target formulation. With the new approach, the outcomes should be more explicit and allow the committee to monitor the effect of the department's work more easily on the economy and job creation. In addition, the approach seeks to reduce silo behavior within the department and between department and its entities. This should assist in facilitating a more efficient use of resources and coherent formulation and implementation of policies. In this regard, the department has formulated 45 output targets, which the relevant department programs and entities jointly contribute to. For example, the department, in conjunction with its entities, such as the IDC and the NEF, would be jointly responsible to achieve the target of facilitating 23,000 jobs in Black industrialist firms. We acknowledge Mr. Kaneso Mkhize from Art Solar, who went from being a general worker to a warehouse manager through attending training courses. This appointment enabled him to fulfill a dream of buying a house for his mom and buying his first car. There are people with dreams and aspirations behind the numbers we are talking about today. Among the output targets, there is a target to support 1 million jobs through master plans, as the Minister has indicated. The committee acknowledged the important role played by government, business, and organized labor in developing 7 master plans to support industrialization and implementation of the reimagined industrial strategy. The master plans cover the following sectors: automotive, retail clothing, textiles, footwear and leather, furniture, poultry, steel and metal fabrication, and global business services. These collaborations have been largely successful in developing a roadmap to stabilize and grow the 7 targeted industries. The committee noted the success stories in the implementation of the automotive and global business services master plans. Part of the retail, clothing, textile, footwear, and leather master plan seeks to curb the illicit trade, the illicit imports and illegal imports of clothing, particularly misinvoicing of imported goods. In this regard, the committee welcomed the department's collaboration with SARS in addressing illicit trade. One of the successes had been a recent court ruling by the Supreme Court of Appeal in favor of the South African Revenue Service regarding the seizure of imported clothing that had been under-declared. As part of building a capable state to ensure improved impact of public policies, the department and its entities must be able to effectively use its available resources to fulfill their mandates in a transparent and an accountable manner. The committee noted that for the 2021-22 financial year, the Auditor General had audited the department and 6 of its entities, and the remaining entities were audited independently. The committee has been consistently overseeing the performance of the National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications over several years and has welcomed this improvement in its governance. The Minister has done significant work in addressing several governance challenges, particularly particularly within the South African Bureau of Standards and the National Lotteries Commission. There have also been several high-level appointments in the department's regulatory entities, such as the chairperson of the Companies Tribunal, the commissioners for BBBE Commission, the Competition Commission, the International Trade Administration Commission of South Africa, and the National Lotteries Commission. The committee has been focusing on overseeing efforts to address corruption at the National Lotteries Commission. It has had regular engagements and reports from the National Lotteries Commission and the Special Investigating Unit on its investigation into alleged corruption and maladministration at the National Lotteries Commission. It welcomed the appointment of the new board and the commissioner, as well as the progress made in establishing systems to root out corruption in the granting of lottery funds. The committee noted that certain entities have unfunded mandates given legislative changes. In addition, transfers to most entities had not substantively increased over the last few financial years. Given the ongoing fiscal constraints, the committee urged the DTIC to review the prescribed income sources, such as levies or fees for services rendered, available to entities to ensure that they are able to effectively fulfill their legislative mandates. The committee will continue to oversee the implementations of programs funded through this budget. The committee supports the 2023 budget vote, trade, industry, and competition, and recommends that the House adopts budget vote 39, trade, industry, and competition. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable McPherson. I'm informed he will be on the virtual platform.
Thank you, House Speaker. Honourable members, cast your mind back to November 2017. South Africa was at a low point. We were told that the choice was between a continuation of the Zuma presidency and more state capture under Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, or a new dawn under Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, which would focus on growing the economy, creating new jobs, creating safer neighborhoods, and better education. The nation was nervous. Its future lay in the hands of just 4,500 delegates at Nasrec on that fateful December day. Mr. Ramaphosa won narrowly, and even non-ANC supporters celebrated his victory. Business popped champagne. People were relieved. The country was saved, so we were told. However, what really happened on the 20th of December 2017, was one man pulling off the biggest con South Africa has ever seen. Ever since that day, life has got a lot worse for a lot more South Africans. The average growth rate has been 1%, and this year we will be closer to 0. Unemployment has worsened every single year under President Ramaphosa. More Black South Africans are unemployed than ever before. 80% of our children cannot read for meaning. Violent crime is at record levels. We have had more blackouts in 2023 than in all of 2022. Corruption is out of control. This was not the new dawn we were promised. At the heart of these economic growth and job creation ambitions promised by President Ramaphosa is the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. However, every single year since Minister Patel was appointed as the minister, the department has very little to show from its crucial mandate. From its entities to regulations to being an advocate for businesses, almost everything they have touched, they have broken. There can be no argument that the economy is worse today than when Mr. Patel came into office. And only him and President Ramaphosa can take responsibility for that. Things have got so bad that even big business has given up on the president and the minister. In a recent interview, Investec Group CEO Fani Titi said, and I quote, "We are going nowhere fast. The government is disorganized. It is totally disorganized." And this best sums up the mood of South Africa in general. Disorganized, chaotic, and with no leadership. Just yesterday, the International Trade Administration Commission, ITAC, shot down the minister's flagship damaging policy of banning scrap metal exports for a period of 6 months. In announcing this policy last year, Minister Patel said, and I quote, "The most effective way to dampen demand for scrap metal is to prohibit exports for a period." ITAC, however, told the Portfolio Committee that there is no clear evidence that this ban has done what the minister said would happen. In fact, ITAC went further to agree with the DA that the minister's policy of localization and tariff protection had made life worse for South Africans, admitting that this had added to the country's inflationary problems and the cost of living crisis. Nothing that the DA had not forewarned the president and the minister about. Honorable members, master plans were supposed to be an economic catalyst, and yet they have delivered so little because the very entities that are supposed to support economic growth are the same ones choking businesses and making goods more expensive. Astral Foods released their financial results this week, and what they had been warning the government about for months has now become a full-blown catastrophe which threatens food security in our country. What it comes down to for Astral is that the ANC-sponsored blackouts and lack of water supply have cost their business R750 million in just the last 6 months. This is forcing the group to reallocate R400 million to supply water and electricity to their operations, which ultimately you and I will pay for in the price of chicken. Ironically, it's the very same taxes that Astral paid government every year that are used to bail out Eskom, which in turn is destroying their business. It's why 80% of the 1,517 businesses surveyed by the Social Research Foundation said that the country was moving in the wrong direction. 1 month ago, the president and minister held another iteration of the so-called investment conference in a continued attempt to sell South Africa as a globally relevant player and partner in trade and investment, unquote. That's the mandate of the conference. Columnist Ed Stoddard described the conference as, I quote, "a theater of the absurd." And I think that that was rather generous, considering what was to come a few weeks later. And the rhetorical question was simply asked, what exactly are we selling to the world? It can't be clean and accountable government. You can't suggest it's a stable economic environment or a country that can supply water and electricity to a factory. And it's certainly not a government that doesn't support Russia in a war against Ukraine. An article by Claire Bisseka in the Financial Mail punched massive holes in President Ramaphosa's claims that these conferences are a success. In fact, she claimed that it's nothing than hot air in an attempt to fool South Africans. In detail, she explains how these, quote, pledges amount to 100 billion rand per year, just 1.5% of GDP, and how fixed investment in the economy has dramatically declined from 22% of GDP in 2008 to just 14% today. In other words, and after inflation, capital expenditure is lower today than it was 5 years ago when President Ramaphosa was first elected. This is the backdrop for the theater of the absurd, and one which is the true story of investments in South Africa. Matt Gherkin, chief geopolitical strategist at BCA Research, recently commentated, and I quote, Ramaphosa is not considered a positive leader by financial markets going forward. He went on to say that, and I quote, he is old and suffering from scandals. He failed to implement significant structural reforms. He failed to mend divisions in the ruling party, and now his credibility will suffer due to his foreign policy. Honourable members, for many years, the ANC have tried to convince the public that Mr. Ramaphosa is above the problems of his party, that he is somehow an astute businessman, and that the ANC can renew itself. All of these have turned out to be a massive lie now. It's clear that we don't just have an ANC problem anymore, but we now also have a Ramaphosa problem. However, what is really beyond any comprehension is the treasonous lengths that the ANC government have gone to risk our exclusion from the African Growth and Opportunities Act, also known as AGOA. The South African government has behaved in the most appalling way by continuously supporting Russia and at the same time claiming it is non-aligned. They have done everything possible to lose our AGOA status, from hosting Russia's foreign minister to abstaining on every single UN resolution condemning the war against Ukraine, even when every other BRICS country did so recently, to sending waves of ministers and officials to Moscow. There's no lengths that the ANC will not go in an attempt to appease Mr. Putin and keep the money flowing to Luthuli House. The worst act of sabotage by this government has been the scandal around the Lady R. There can be no doubt that instruments of war were loaded onto the Lady R, a sanctioned Russian ship in the dead of night at a South African naval base. That no one claims to know what was on board, from the President to the Minister of Defense, is an example of how insipid, weak, and pathetic this government has become. 2 weeks later, the President has still not appointed a judge to head a judicial inquiry into this debacle. Why is no one able to pick up the phone and ask someone in Simonstown what was on that ship is an embarrassment to our nation. And all of this comes at a great cost to our country and to our investor status. The Rand has fallen to historical lows, and we stand at the precipice of losing 400 billion Rand worth of exports. Is it worth it? Is supporting Russia, aiding a sanctioned ship, and agitating our trading partners really worth it? For a country where even Mozambique provides more trade with us? The answer surely has to be no. And where has Minister Patel been in all of this? What has he done in cabinet and in public to push back against this kamikaze attack by his government on our economy? Where is your patriotism, Minister Patel? Why are you not speaking up for your constituents in business and manufacturing? Honourable members, while the ANC has given up on South Africa, the DA will not. That is why the leader of the Democratic Alliance recently traveled to Washington to meet with US lawmakers and had one simple message. The ANC is not South Africa. We cannot allow South Africa to be punished for the ANC's reckless approach to our economy. And we will continue to lobby and fight for our country on a daily basis. Next week, Western Cape Premier Alan Winde will make the same trip and repeat the same message to America. Do not punish South Africa because of the ANC. Honourable members, next year we have every opportunity to rid our beautiful country of this unpatriotic, Russian-captured, parasitic organization called the African National Congress. I know that change is just around the corner, and we can save what we have and rebuild what the ANC have destroyed. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Shlonyana. Order, honorable members.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Greetings to the Commander-in-Chief, President Julius Malema, officials of the EFF, commissars, fighters, and ground forces.
Order, honorable
The
members.
EFF will be celebrating 10 years of unbroken promises this year. We would like to take this opportunity to invite all South Africans to join us in celebrating a political party that has brought change to the lives of the people and the marginalized. A political party that in its 10 years have held the corrupt ANC government to account. A political party that fights gender-based violence and have raised awareness of the scourge that faces South Africa, where women are killed daily. House Chairperson, on the 29th of July, the EFF will be hosting the Festival of the Poor at the FNB Stadium. You are all invited. We call on the ground forces to fill up the FNB Stadium inside and out. Doomsayers said we will never make it. They said we will never grow.
Order, honorable members.
But today, the EFF is turning 10 years old, and we will deliver the Commander-in-Chief. Julius Malema is the President of South Africa comes 2024. House Chairperson, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition could have been in the forefront of creation of major industries that are seen in other countries like China, Russia, and South Korea. All these three countries combined have created millions of jobs directly and indirectly for their citizens, and their government plays a central role in the growth of their industry. The industries that we once seen as small businesses and medium today are dominating the world market. All this within the last 30 years. Sadly, this cannot be said about South Africa. Unfortunately, we do not have such stories to tell, Minister, as we have no major industries which have been created by this ANC government in the last 29 years. Your government keeps on telling us about hope that siyakuba nikuba lelizwe to where exactly when the industries in all sectors, big and small, continue to collapse. Minister Patel, there is a 31-year-old named Modlane Tabang from Pinar outside Mbombela in Mpumalanga, who has been compelled to close down his poultry business. He has been running for 4 years due to load shedding. He's been specializing in producing eggs, hatching them, and also selling broiler chicken for the living after being funded by the city of Mbombela. The incubation machine used for hatching of eggs must always be on for production to be successful. He tried to use diesel during the times of lower stages of load shedding, but he was now working at a loss. Unfortunately, Mr. Tabang had to close the businesses and had to let go of his 2 employees. It is a shame that when it comes to SMME's development, the ANC government creates and destroys at the same time. Absolutely madness. Minister, as you and your ANC government continue to daydream and do the minimum, the reality is that only the EFF government can be able to industrialize at a large scale in order to promote jobs, rising income for our people. It is only the EFF that can protect and transform, build an inclusive economy, a capable state, because we are not daydreamers like you. Minister, in a short space of time, our MMCs, both in Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni, have already demonstrated good governance and service delivery, just to show how quickly EFF can turn things around. The EFF welcomes the African continent. Chair, can I be protected, please?
Honorable
The
member, I'll protect you against your own members. It's them
The
that's making a noise.
Welcomes the African continent
Honorable members of the
agreement.
Honorable members of the EFF and the DA. Honorable members of the EFF and the DA. You are interrupting the speaker at the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The EFF
Order, honorable members. Order.
The
Order, honorable members.
African continent trade agreement, and it is providing opportunities to increase trade with other African countries and to develop new sectors in the economy. We too, Minister Patel, like you, hope this increases South African trading partners within the African continent. The EFF has always called for one Africa, and we feel this is the right steps in achieving that. We hope that the creation of inclusive economy continues without hindrance, and that the 9 billion, which is earmarked by the Industrial Development Corporation to invest in women-led businesses, become a success. We will be watching this space. Minister, the truth is we will not attract major investment opportunity as a country where we have no stable electricity, and it is not a secret that our grid can collapse at any moment. Who will want to invest in such a country, let alone in a government that is famous for corruption? We do not see the new Minister of Electricity resolving our country's problems, Minister Patel. Instead, we see him touring the country. Maybe they should have made him the Minister of Tourism. You should have a word with him and make him understand that a country that cannot produce its own electricity is a country that cannot run its industries. As business close shops every time we have load shedding. Even franchises like KFC have closed some of their shops, and we fear our beloved Nando's might follow soon. Minister, this is our country, and we must build it. The factories you have spoken about at the beginning of your speech will die because of load shedding. There are no real gains. We are simply going backwards. The issue of our trading partner, especially the European Union and the United States, is shameless. The trade agreement must benefit both parties equally. At the moment, the scale tilt better to them than us. Their behavior and attitude towards our citrus will only cripple this industry, but it may lead to job losses as well. The false codling moth regulations passed by the European Union's mid-season was not good for the citrus industry, and 2023 will be a very bad year for this sector. The European Union's decision will collapse our economy. This is a typical of an example when one trade partner does not care for another trade partner. First, it was the regulations with the citrus black spot. Now it's the moth. Absolutely nonsensical. Minister Patel, you are busy speaking about electrical vehicles without electricity. You may continue to daydream, Minister. The EFF rejected this budget vote. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is the Honorable Majosi.
Honorable Chairperson, this government has proven time and again that it is not capable of creating the kind of stability required for a stable and attractive trade and industry environment in South Africa. Across the board, whether it is mining, food, healthcare, and most other industries, business is extremely concerned that failed statehood is now fast becoming a foregone conclusion. Grid collapse being the straw that is said to break the camel's back. It is reported that last year power cuts cost between 7 to 8% of gross domestic product. The South African rand plummeted to its lowest levels against the British pound in 3 years last week, nearing 25 rand to 1 GBP. Private enterprise is throwing its hands up in exasperation as the situation worsens daily, leaving private enterprise to find solutions and alternatives to growing government incompetency and ineptitude. The challenges are many and varied, but the main ones remain that of power, crime, and transport logistics. These are all key to current and future business growth and foreign investment. If we add South Africa's grain and clear stance on certain international issues, such as the situation in Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, and the continued membership of the International Criminal Court, matters only become bleaker, with the South African business and its citizens becoming the net losers. Agreements such as the United African Growth and Opportunity Act swings precariously in the balance due to the above and is placing billions of rands worth of preferential trade between the US and SA at risk. Is this the time domestically to be fence-sitting internationally? Diplomatic disagreements will definitely hurt more than help our domestic trade situation at this juncture. And government should be doing all it can to restore good relationships with all the international partners. Global investors did not respond well to the president's possible stepping down in December 2022. And this still worries business as it could happen again. What is being done to assure foreign investment that it won't? This crisis has given rise to impact investing, which is cross-sectoral initiatives aimed at the deployment of capital that optimizes financial, social, and environmental returns. As with many great initiatives in South Africa, we are met by a government that consistently shows its slow and disinterested approach to seeing through the success of programs. The African Free Trade Agreement, we hope, will not be one of these. But we won't hold our breath. The African Free Trade Agreement is something that is supposed to unite and get Africa working. Yet South Africa is struggling to get working according to a 2014 World Bank report. Approximately 80% of poverty reduction is due to a nation's economic growth through free trade and free markets. Free trade and free markets are also what halved global poverty between 1981 and 2005. This weak commitment from government is bringing those to book over fraud, bribery, corruption, and state capture, leaves us with little hope that we have the institution strong enough to stave off the opportunistic criminals from other continental countries. We are concerned with how SARS will be capacitated to manage illicit financial flows and monitor monies owed to the revenue collector from foreigners who conducted business in South Africa. The budget of this department does not sufficiently address this concern, which we fear is but another missed opportunity for South Africa to rebuild, reclaim, and extend its economic development. For example, there is no dedicated funds to address the lack of infrastructure support for industrial zones of South Africa, so that once free trade opens up between fellow African countries, we must be in a position to capitalize on the benefits of opening up borders to other African countries for trade, so that our people are the ones that benefit. Will ESCOM be able to service increased economic activity from free trade? Whether we have sufficient police judicial service to deal with foreign criminals? Do we have agreements from other countries for these prosecutions? We ask those questions, Minister, but the IFP supports the budget.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable F.J. Mulder.
Dankie, agbare huisvoorsitter. Honorable Minister, honorable members. The budget report and annual performance plan before the House today is indeed presentable. But through you, Chair, to the Honorable Minister Patel, I wish to thank the Minister, Honorable Minister, for sharing the good news stories with us. It's good to hear that and to recognize it. But many of the preconditions for economic recovery are political in nature. What I want to focus on today is the economic growth part of the department. And I want to share this with the Honorable Minister through you, Chair. Not enough and possibly too late, and I will tell you why, with a specific focus on economic growth and economic recovery. South Africa's future economic prosperity is linked to political conditions and policy revisions. Current ANC policies have failed to deliver the growth South Africa needs to eradicate unemployment, poverty, skewed income, and wealth distribution. A particular challenge is the restriction of South Africa's growth potential, which has deteriorated over time from 3% per annum to around 1% per annum. South Africa's lack of political will and capacity to implement economic recovery plans that were either not implemented with speed and urgency or were not implemented at all are serious impediments. More rapid economic growth would have placed South Africa in a much improved fiscal position with higher gross income product per capita and substantially lower unemployment rate. The South African government and the department should therefore focus on the removal of growth limitations in its short-run attempts to ensure economic recovery and economic growth. The South African economy is overburdened by regulation. It should be made easier for business to continue with its activities rather than to focus on meeting all prescriptions. BBBE has run a failed course in South Africa and do not serve the best interest of the country. In many instances, it became a veil for state capture and corruption and has developed into tokenism and favorism. Special economic zones are too fragmented and should be consolidated. In the current form, these zones do not reach sufficient critical mass to make any difference in the economic performance of South Africa. Despite the many serious impediments and obstacles to a sustained economic recovery in South Africa, two basic aspects should be resolved expeditiously. The two most important impediments are uninterrupted power supply, and I think we all agree on that, and service delivery by municipalities. There is no doubt that the economy was already in difficulty before the first COVID-19 lockdown of March 22, 2020, due to poor governance, state capture, and corruption. Falling productivity and low consumer and business confidence arising from structural rigidity in the public sector, policy uncertainty and regulatory environment that hampers private fixed investment, inefficiencies in state-owned enterprises, increased the costs of key inputs in production because of Eskom, a rising cost of capital, labor market rigidity, insufficient competition in product markets, and a general lack of maintenance at local government level, resulting in infrastructure neglect. The current world economy outlook is unfavorable for the South African economy, and signed trade agreements like AGOA should be cherished. If the AGOA agreement is cancelled or not renewed in 2025, the detrimental effect of our economy would be too much to complicate. African countries opened their markets on the 1st of January 2021 for free trade in terms of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and bottlenecks should be removed, such as border post delays, to ensure that the country recaps the full benefits of this agreement. I wish to extend an invitation to Honourable Mr. Patel on behalf of the FF Plus to receive and discuss the economic recovery plan that we put forward as a contribution towards the economy and the economic recovery plan of South Africa. South Africa deserves better. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Thring.
Honorable House Chairperson, the ACDP notes the mandate of DTIC to facilitate the creation of a conducive environment for companies and people to grow, consequently creating jobs. Using corollary logic, it could be argued that because jobs are not being created, evidenced by our high unemployment rate of 32.9%, this department is failing then to create an environment conducive for economic growth. The ACDP welcomes the improved ability to measure the department's programs, as this facilitates and bolsters the oversight role the committee must play. We have generally given support to the department's master plans as potential catalysts for economic and industrial growth within their respective sectors, while simultaneously calling for structural reform. The work of DTIC is aligned to Aspiration 1 of the African Union's Agenda 2063, calling for a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. Now, if we are to see inclusive growth and sustainable development, then South Africa and her citizens must come first, above political ideology, race-based and cadre deployment policies. The worker empowerment objective must be used to provide equity for workers irrespective of their race. When looking at the failures of Eskom, SAA, Denel, and PRASA, to name a few, we realize that merit and not race-based policies is what is needed to grow our industrial base. In this regard, the Employment Equity Amendment Act does not bring equity. It is discriminatory, divisive, a relic of the apartheid job segregation law, and contradicts the declaration that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. and it also falls foul of Chapter 2, subsection 22 of our Constitution. The ACDP will continue to promote the beneficiation of its extracted minerals, where beneficiation transforms a mineral or group of minerals into a higher value product which can be consumed locally or exported. I wish to conclude with the plea from an ordinary South African. I quote, "I plead with you to please join forces with other political parties in Parliament and make a plan to reduce the levels of load shedding. Businesses are failing, even large companies. The company that I work for, we are now in millions of rands overdraft and 1,000 families' income is at threat, all as a result of load shedding." What we need is an alternate caring government that provides solutions to the problems faced by its citizens. That's what is needed. The ACDP is that alternate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Khina. You've got 10 minutes, Honorable Member.
House Chairperson, Chairperson of the committee, Portfolio Committee, honorable members, fellow South Africans. House Chairperson, we are presenting this budget vote during the hardest time for our country. As highlighted by Minister Patel's opening address, the current economic environment has taken a huge strain and our overall economic outlook is subdued because of factors such as energy, as everyone has been alluding to, and the European geopolitical conflict. All of these factors account significantly into the bad food with which we find ourselves, especially with regards to the low growth and high unemployment figures. Honorable members, despite all these headwinds that are foundational to our current shocks, we are not in despair. We are confident that we'll pass this phase and return to a higher growth path and accelerated rate of reindustrialization, as a result of which will be the rising employment rate, upliftment of our people, and improvement of social standard for our society. As we are making a call not to despair, we are taking strength from John, the British writer, who once advised us, open quote, he said, "When you are in the middle of the storm, it's hard to think outside of it, but only way out of the storm is to ride through it and things will be a lot clearer on the other side," close quotes. We have chosen to rise through and address these challenges, and things are going to be clearer on the other side soon. One of the biggest challenges we are confronting is the import-export balance impacting on our economy. South Africa's import to GDP ratio is too high for an economy which needs to speed up its growth and a country desperately in need of job creation. The World Bank figures cite that in 2021, our imports were 25% to GDP, which is inconsistent with our peer countries. Some of these products imported can be justifiable, be produced locally. To illustrate this point, on the 5th of April 2023, I opened a Black-owned footwear factory in Stenga, the Lighthouse Footwear Factory. The department supported them through the clothing, textile, and footwear leather growth program to buy machineries for about 6 million. In that launch, I was informed that South Africa consumes almost 3,000 million pairs of shoes annually. The 75% of those are important and only 25% are produced locally. Just imagine the impact that we can make in job creation and growth if we can be intentional about driving the importance and the substitution and build small and medium and middle-sized shoe factories across various districts. This factory I'm referring to already has an offtake with GEM stores, supplying 118 stores nationally. And that is exactly where we are getting into as DTIC, and we are intentional in making sure that we open up those factories. Minister Patel, thank you for that. Minister Patel has spoken extensively about boosting local production and export. Our vision as the DTIC, we do not think only about large size manufacturing and factories, but also the small emerging ones, because we strongly believe that a lot of job opportunities are created and there. I have a proud story again of the young Jacobs, a couple in Ceres, Western Cape, that I visited in 2021 as part of the inspecting post-COVID economic recovery in various factories. The Jacobs family manufactures jam were under strain after the hard lockdown. We coordinated government assistance. We sent them to our trade missions in Dubai. We also sent them in Durban for inter-African trade fair. The Department of Agriculture and Land Reform gave them the grant of 3.3 million in Durban Trade Fair. They managed to secure the offtake to Zambia. In Dubai, they secured an offtake to the UAE, and today they supply ShopRite in the Western Cape and negotiating with SPAR. When you can remember, on the 21st of May this year, their story was in the ENCA, and we are proud as to say, those are just but one examples where we're saying we are trying to make a change and make sure that people get into the economic growth of our country. As the department, we have decided to put a mirror against ourselves to interrogate our inner workings, capacity and approaches in achieving all systemic trade and industrial advances. We have accepted the new approach in how we implement and can give us better results. And this new approach is underpinned by a clear theory of change. At the center of the reimagined industrial policy are 3 apex outcomes agreed in the 2022-23 financial year for the DTIC group and its entities to contribute on. These 3 apex outcomes are the industrialization to promote jobs and rising incomes, transformation to build an inclusive economy, and a capable state to ensure improved impact on public policies. These 3 outcomes have 6 underlying pillars. The first one is to combine growth with transformation, to boost local production, grow export and expand Africa trade, increase level of investment, establish a more reliable and low-cost energy system while greening the economy overall, and also to grow employment. The 6 pillars shaped the core objectives of 2023-2024 APP. The DTIC group in previous APPs targeted the inputs and activities that will have a beneficial outcome and impact on job, industrial output, export, and investment. This was done because many external factors driving the outcomes were outside the control of the department, such as global economics, geopolitical developments, climate change shocks, and South African energy problems, crime, including transport and logistics. This year, however, a significant step change has been introduced. The new approach focuses on meaningful outputs referred to as targets. Honorable members, 10 core targets have been set that represent the real impact we aim to achieve in the economy and measure crucial indicators like local input, job creation, and performance of Black industrialists. To demonstrate with this regards, the Black industrialists, who have moved away from Black-based empowerment, which is more about securing shares from existing white companies. Our policy levers have shifted towards expanding a number of firms and companies that are started by Black South Africans. We have very good successful stories when it comes to this Black industrialist scheme, but of course, there are still challenges in the policy of funding regime for Black industrialists, but we are determined to address those areas. The growth and transformation pillar can also be seen in our determination in the promotion of worker ownership regime in the companies with board representatives. While our targets are important, these core targets are the apex priority of the department, and all the programs of the DTIC are expected to contribute to the achievement of these essential outputs. In total, 45 outputs targets have been set and shared with Parliament last month. Chairperson, In this approach, Minister Patel has announced a stretch targets today higher than those set in the APP. The purpose is to galvanize the department in these important drivers of growth. We are introducing clear targets with weekly reports by staff managers. We want problem-solving approach to work instead of bureaucratic mindset. We are committed to integration of work between DTIC entities. We have started to target districts in the form of Izimbizos with all our agencies needed by the public. We are taking the DTIC to the people. We have resolved that all our senior officials will be ambassadors or champions for district to ensure that we work with them to materially change the people's life. In the same vein, we are strengthening partnership with business and labor and social combating. Internally, we have commenced with the project of the Fit for Purpose structure. The roles and responsibilities identified through Fit for Purpose structure will assist in addressing the working in silos, streamlining business processes, reprioritizing resources, and reducing administrative burden. All of the above measures are geared toward improving internal departmental capacity to deliver in driving reimagined industrialization policy in the quickest possible way with good attitude and without red tapes. Honorable members, I want to remind you that of one of the English and cleric writer, Charles Caleb, who once said, I open quote, "Times of great calamity and confusion have been productive for greatest mind. The purest ore produced from the hottest furnace, the brightest thunderbolt is elicited from the darkest storm," close quote.
Your
And
time
that
is
is
up,
exactly
Honorable
where we are.
Member.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. For the next five minutes, we are taking Honorable Malemacha because ATM is not in the house.
House Chairperson, Minister, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament, guests, everyone on the virtual platform. The ANC support the vote. The ANC strategy and tactic highlight to us the relationship between the state and the private capital. It reads, the relationship between the national democratic state and all private capital, including the monopoly capital, is one of unity, struggle, cooperation, and contestation. The Honorable President Ramaphosa has gone broad and pegged the correct proposition. The private sector has a cooperation role to play with the public sector to transform our economy and create necessary jobs for the vast majority of unemployed South Africans. Since the start of the 6th administration, the ANC-led government introduced investment conferences to mobilize private sector to contribute towards the development of our country. The investment conference has since raised 1.5 trillion in investment pledges in different sectors of our economy, such as manufacturing, mining, infrastructure, retail, service center. There are currently 169 projects that are either finalized or under construction. Building capable states. It is critical to have a well-functioning relationship between the state and the private sector. The state cannot operate in isolation. The reimagined industrial strategy recognizes the importance of leveraging the strengths of the private sector and organized labor. As private investment is the key driver of economic growth in recognizing the role of private sector. As chairperson, taba e botse ke batho ba tshwane o la Flag Fontaine mo ne le hlathe o sena le tshepo ya ro ka dire ya selo. Wa fitla minister a tsamaya le president. Ba dumellana hore mo ba tla launcha seo se bitswa o tshwane automotive special economic zone. Ke bolela se re na le ntate James Molambo wa mengwae 56. Ke o mongwe wa ba luru ba bereka boradi kontraka by 4,848. O bile o rekile koloi ye e dirilwe mo. a latelwa ke Agnes Kekana. Agnes Kekana ke mme yo a itlhokomeletseng bana a sena monna. Le ena ba mpotsa gore ke yo mongwe wa 12% ya bomme ba bereka moo. Le ena o rekile koloi ya modiro wa Ford e dirile ona moo. Ka re ke sa eme wa ba le Thabo Nkuna yo ne a fetša o graduata a se sana tshepo gore a ka ba le bokamoso. E ke mmotšiša a rona le mengwaga ye 23. A re ke ile ka tšea tsela ya black industrialist. Ke motho a iphelela o ka bogole disabled. Le yena o rekile koloi ebile ya weki e tšhweu e dirile ona moo ya Ford. Batho ba tshwane ra boya ra ba fa tshepo ya gore mešomo e re tlo e sia ona moo la Vlakfontein. Ona mo ne e le lehlathe le sodi e ka fita 10,000. Batho ba tshwane ba bofane ke ba rata development ya bona ba bereka ka tsela. Ba re a ona le construction mafia e ka tsena o marene ya tshinya mosebetsi o mobotse wa batho ba tshwane. Ba tshepisa minister le president ba nroma ba re boja batho ba o ka 2024 da leboa ANC ha ona mmusho o ka bereka o bjale ka ANC. The continual power outrage are having advantage impact on the broader economy ability. Re mokgatlo re lemohile hore seo ke thoka boroko. Ke ka moo re preach out the establishment of one-stop shop to assist power generation company to navigate the different legislation process and improve turnaround time, assisting investors to submit applications through a single window process. Reba ANC, we are hard at work to find lasting solution to the energy crisis. We are confident that the bold approach by the APP will continue to solve contradiction we are conducting with SS society. Thank you so much, Chairman.
For the next 3 minutes on the virtual platform is Honorable Jafta.
Thank you, Chairperson. This budget must be viewed against the department's goal of achieving local production increase in the trade and inclusive growth. It must also be viewed against the role of the Competition Commission and whether it has been able to caution small businesses against price fixing, collusion, and uncompetitive conduct. The Department of Trade, Industry, and Competition is central to our industrial manufacturing capabilities. Without a thriving industrial and manufacturing sector, our trade potential can never be harnessed. Harnessing our trade potential equally entails transforming and diversifying our commodity products. Honorable Chair, it is now common cause that the South African economy is still concentrated. In our 2019 manifesto, we made a compelling case for the adoption of an import substitution strategy, which was to map out our resolve to capacitate small and medium-sized enterprises through targeted seed funding, preferential procurement, and supply development. We advised that the strategy was to be implemented through a substitution import agency. Empirically, a case can then be made that the non-existence of an import substitution strategy and agency is behind our trade deficit. It is also the main drive of the over-concentration of dominant firms at the top levers of our economy. Competition settlements have been anti-poor and inconsistent with the very purpose of including competition in the trade and industry portfolio. Dominant firms still dominate markets. They still hike prices and they often get away with it. Where penalties have been preferred, they are often unpunitive. The budget must respond to all these issues. Accordingly, Honorable Chair, we will support this budget vote. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Cope is not in the house, so we'll proceed to Honorable Ntwani for 5 minutes.
Honorable House Chairperson, Minister, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament, distinguished guests, and fellow South Africans. The ANC supports the budget vote 39. It is indeed an honor to stand before this honorable House to represent the people of the Northern Cape and South Africa in driving the developmental agenda of our country. The African National Congress has the historic task of transforming the structure of our economy for the benefit of the people. Industrializing our economy is important in achieving this. However, we cannot separate industrialization from localization. Localization is one of several tools adopted in the economic reconstruction and recovery plan to improve the buoyancy of the economy, promote investment, develop new markets, transform the economy, advance equitable spatial development, and contribute to the development of a capable state. It is pivotal in stimulating growth and transformation, and is about morphing into an enabling environment for inclusive growth, deepening the country's industrialization base, and creating targeted transformation measures. Broadly, localization expands the economy to include more participants and to ensure that more parts of the population, including women, young people, Black South Africans, and the rural poor, can contribute to and benefit from growth. The ANC-led government has already seen some success with its recent localization policies, including in the textile industry, where it is now a requirement for entities such as the South African National Defense Force to purchase all its uniforms from local producers. Since signing the clothing, textile, footwear, and leather master plan in November 2019, the industry has invested more than R500 million to expand local manufacturing facilities, including SMMEs. The work of the National Empowerment Fund and the Industrial Development Corporation has been instrumental in providing support to SME to drive local production. There is further investment in the agricultural and manufacture sectors, including an investment of 1.7 billion rand by the South African Poultry Association as part of the Poultry Master Plan. South Africa now produces an additional 1 million chickens every week. A 3 billion investment by Ford Motor Company of South Africa and a 10 billion rand investment by Mercedes-Benz to expand plants in Gqeberha and East London. Komatsu South Africa has made a 3 million rand investment in an engine remanufacturing plant. Localization is not merely a policy of this department, but has resounding support amongst South Africans who recognize the need to industrialize the local economy. The approach to localization has been unanimously endorsed by the NETLAC that represent a large number of firms and entrepreneurs, workers in different sectors of the economy, and organizations made up of representatives of various community interests. To enhance our localization drive, the vote to disburse funds to Proudly South Africa campaign to support sectoral work and master plans and projects that aim to improve industrialization and competitiveness and increase localization. Localization will significantly expand our productive economy, and this is linked to expanding our trade agenda on the African continent through the African Continental Free Trade Area by eliminating barriers to trade in Africa. The agreement will reshape the South African economy already, and the exports to African countries comprise of 250,000 South African jobs, and it is the fastest growing part of our manufactured exports. It goes without saying that AfCFTA has huge potential to harness the power of women and youth to realize its true potential. According to the World Bank, it will lift 30 million people from extreme poverty and another 68 million from moderate poverty. The interventions are only a fraction of the work being done by the ANC-led government in the face of limited resources and the increasing demand to do more to grow our economy and change the lives of the people of South Africa for the better. I thank you.
Honorable Hendricks has pulled out, so we'll now proceed to Honorable Mboyani for the next 12 minutes.
Mbuyane njani manje? Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings, Minister, Deputy Ministers, and members of Parliament, guests, fellow South African. We are gathered here today on the occasion of the debate on the trade, industry, and competition. And we are also celebrating the first State of the Nation address by the former President Mandela. Celebrating also the International Day for Peace and Disarmament. Our point of departure as the ANC is that the budget is an instrument to finance the implementation of the policies of the majority party, which are aimed at structural transformation of our economy. And in this case, the majority party is the ANC. The ANC vision for the South African economy is guided by the Freedom Charter, the injunction that the people shall share in the country's wealth. This informs the ANC government position and the approach in the manner in which that the growth enhancing, but it's ensure that the pace and the patterns of growth are inclusive and they transform our society. Where is the Shadow Minister? Yeah, it's in the shadows. Our approach in the economic transformation is guided by, amongst other things, creating decent employment for all South Africans, eliminating poverty, and dealing decisively with the extreme inequalities of our society. That is very much extreme. You must listen. We must also democratize ownership and control of the economy by empowering historical oppressed Africans and the working class in particular to play leading role in the decision-making, restructuring the economy so that it meets the basic need of South Africans and the people of the region, especially the poor. In order to structurally transform our economy, it is important to re-industrialize our economy so that we are moving from the global productive value chain. In this turn needs to be supported by massive infrastructure development and transformation of the education and training system, among others, to align with the support of a development and productive for our economic objective. The budget vote and the annual performance plan clearly articulate a practical, unique approach to respond to the structural transformation of our economy. This is informed by the creating of opportunities for all South Africans. This involves the deconcentrating of our economy and open inclusive product and service market for participation by all. It is also about enduring commitment to support Black industrialists and workers who were previously denied access to opportunities for the economic ownership and participation. Furthermore, the budget vote is also about ensuring that the spatial strategy that informs how we build and support the new model of special economic zone, industrial parks, and in secondary and also in rural areas. Our state-owned entities must be at the forefront of complying with the localization and also beneficiation policies. Through localization, our transformation agenda will find practical expression. Transformation is about building an economy that works where our people are, bringing development to rural provinces and districts. The revised approach to spatial industrial policy, informed by the district development model, will see government supporting projects that creates job, infrastructure, and innovations in the 52 districts across the country. We are taking steps to raise the profile of the Black Industrials Program as part of our overall transformation objective. The Black Industrialist Scheme addresses the low representation of Black industrialists with the majority ownership and provides the support they need to transform their organization into viable, sustainable enterprise to address the twin national priorities, local economic development and economic inclusivity. The Black Economic Scheme incentive invested more than 4 billion in projects owned by Black industrialists, about 20% of which were accessed by Black female industrialists. This illustrates success of this scheme. Let me highlight one of the support Black industrial scheme over this period. A Toronto Group Pty Ltd, the group manufactured charcoal for export market in Europe and has activated carbon for water treatment and purification. We are encouraged by the budget vote 39 that makes substantial allocation to the BBBEE to execute its mandate and build necessary capacity to ensure the enforcement of the BBBEE. Pastor, BBBEE is a policy of this government. For a long time, our people have been taken for a ride in transformation agenda of our government. In terms of the need to advance the quest for inclusivity across our economy, we acknowledge the catalytic role of the National Empowerment Fund, has championed a catalytic role, an agent for government mandate to grow meaningful Black economic participation. We're pleased with the stride the NEF has made in attracting over 8.8 billion in third-party funding, demonstrating the entity capacity as a catalyst for unblocking economic value chain. The industrial park process huge potential that requires unlocking so that we become strategic nodal points for different economic activities. I think my time, let me rush to deal with these elements. These unbecoming elements. They are real example of Black economic beneficiation of the ANC-led government revitalized program. And one of them is Mia Roofing that develops some roofing and also sheeting rigid in Limpopo. What? Okay. The people of South Africa must know that the opposition party that reject this vote, they are rejecting industrialization. They are rejecting creating of jobs. They are rejecting transformation. They are rejecting localization. They wish for the imported entities like Competition Commission, the BBBEE Commission, the NEF and the IDC to collapse, and all other transformational programs aimed at changing the imbalances of the past. They wish for the poor African majority to remain poor. They want our economy to remain untransformed and the spatial inequality to continue.
Just hold on, Honorable Member. Just hold on. Honorable Tobias. This thing that you are doing is not on. Because it's clear now you are consistent in switching on your mic when the debates are on. It's clear that it's not a mistake.
Yeah.
So please stop that, Honorable Tabayas. Proceed, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. This kind of, I did not finish my statement. They want the economy to remain untransformed and spatial inequality to continue. Yet they want the African majority to vote for them. This kind of mediocrity opportunities, opposition that people of South Africa are cursed with. This is the simple, no validity, no soundness in their articulation and the approach to solving the structural challenges. These ones of EAF, they are pleasing the masters. Greetings to the Commander-in-Chief when they are waiting here with a narrow nationalist agenda and the mentality of dreaming, of daydreaming to take the country in 2024. And the ones of the shadow minister is not here, the DA shadow minister, they always gossiping about the ANC. They don't have their issues and their neoliberal agenda and the Kachala. This one is an embarrassment to the family. It's serious embarrassment, this one, to the family of Kachali. The FF plus economic growth and the recovery plan should focus on
Just hold on.
Korean.
Don't remember.
Chair.
Just relax. Just hold on. Honorable Member,
Chair.
what are you standing on?
I'd like you to rule on that statement that was just made about me and my family, whether that's parliamentary. Thank you.
Okay. That's unparliamentary, Honorable Member. Withdraw the statement.
I withdraw to the family. I unconditionally withdraw. Yeah. FF plus, you should be, focusing on the issue of releasing our land in Orania, not coming here and talking of triple BE, because this policy tried to regain the redress and try to address issues of the past. The ACDP pastor should focus on the word of God and not coming here and talk politics, rhetoric, and also coming here and give us church sermons. We are here, we are governing the country and as an ANC. I'm right as the AIC, we are in agreement in terms of the concentration of the economy. We're in agreement, the economy is very much concentrated on my left here. We're still trying to find a solution because we have a competition commission that we are supporting its report that the economy is very concentrated to the white, and now the report, we need to deal with it. So I think the minister will also allude to all those issues. The ANC support the vote 39, and I thank you very much.
Honorable Member. Honorable members, we have now reached the critical stage of the debate where the minister must now wrap up. For 10 minutes, Minister.
House Chairperson and honorable members, we're now wrapping up a debate on trade, industry and competition. If I had to characterize the contributions, there were three types of contributions. The first set of contributions were from members of the ANC, Honorable Malemecha, Honorable Ntwane, and Honorable Mbuyani, giving concrete examples of progress of the kind of things that have been done. The second one is contributions from some members of the opposition. I'll put there Honorable Majosa, Honorable Mulder, Honorable Tring, and Honorable Jafta Majosi, who all engaged with the issues. They supported some of what we put forward, some of what is in our annual performance plan. but not all of it. They also had some challenges with what we were doing. And I would like to say that we've taken careful note of those. Any government that is always open to new ideas and to feedback can improve service delivery to South Africans. And so all of those ideas, even where we don't fully agree, we're going to give consideration. And Honorable Mulder, I'd love to take up your invitation to come and speak to you about the economic recovery plan. The third kind of contribution was made from the DA speaker. How I would characterize it, it was simply a pre-election speech. Not a very good one, but a pre-election speech. It was predictable, it was tired, it was hopeless, it was filled with despair. I know that Honorable McPherson can do better, and I'd like him to try to lift his game a little bit. What did he offer? He offered slogans, he offered criticism, and he offered rhetoric. The DA bakes slogans. We don't have that luxury. We have to bake bread. And so what is it that Honorable McPherson has raised? He says the department has little to show for what it's done, and the investment conferences are simply smokes and mirrors. I want to give you 10 reasons why Honorable McPherson is wrong. Reason one, Ford Motor Company announces that they would put money into South Africa, $1 billion. They then put that money in. 10 factories are built. Before the start of this administration, it was an open felt. Today, there are 10 factories. In fact, it was such a good success. It was such a good success that Honorable Steenhuisen decided to jump quickly into the podium, go to the SEZ and say, we did this as the DA. Now, I can give you number two, Consol Glass, Consol Glass. If I had a glass here now to drink from, and I don't have a glass here, chances are 5 years ago, 3 years ago, even a year and a half ago, it would have been an imported glass because all of our drinking glasses are imported. Consol took a decision to invest in bottles and in glasses. And so we now have greater capacity to make bottles and glasses in South Africa. They made that announcement in the investment conference. Thirdly, Sigma. Sigma is a call center. It's a call center in the Western Cape, Sigma made a commitment in the investment conference chaired by the president that they would open up a call center. It's open today. It provides jobs for young people from Mitchell's Plain and Khayelitsha. Fourth reason why you're wrong, Rail Tile Manufacturing. It's a tile manufacturer that's expanding its production in South Africa, replacing imports, and it's opened up this new facility in Bronkhorstspruit. Fifth reason why you're wrong, Sapi, Psycho. Here is a plant in KZN. It takes trees that's grown on the plantation there, and through a sophisticated process, it turns it into pulp. That pulp in turn is turned into viscose fabric and the tablets that you take when you're ill. That company came to the investment conference, made a multi-billion rand commitment. Today, that plant is open and they're exporting significant quantities. Sixth reason, number 6, why you're wrong. DeFi is a company that is based in eZakheni. They make white goods, fridges, stoves, those kind of things are white goods. They made a commitment in the investment conference. We had the opportunity now to see the new production rolling off the line, workers employed. Seventh reason, and the seventh reason I'm going to say are really 4,000 reasons. 4,000 workers in a factory. 4,000 workers in a factory that made a commitment at the investment conference. That factory's name is Met-Air, and the facility in Kwadukuza is called Hesto Harness, and they produce these harnesses for the industry. Young people, mainly women working there. I went to this factory. It's massive. You could fit in 5 parliaments, 5 sitting of the full parliament, and there will be space over. Eighth reason, number 8, why you're wrong. Google, the global company, comes to South Africa, makes a commitment in the investment conference saying, we can see where your growth trajectory is. We're going to build an undersea cable, lay an undersea cable from South Africa to West Africa to Europe that would allow members of parliament to also do their financial transaction, watch their Netflix if they want to watch Netflix, do their Zoom meetings, and all of that was a commitment made at the investment conference. Today, that undersea cable has landed in South Africa. Ninth reason, Aqua Power. Today, 100 megawatts of power generation is being built in the Northern Cape because of a commitment that was made by a Saudi investor at the investment conference. And the 10th reason is Mercedes-Benz. When you see a Mercedes-Benz, a C-Class, almost anywhere in the world, it's made of only 3 places. It's made in Bremen in Germany, or it's made in Beijing in China, or it's made in Buffalo City in South Africa. That commitment was made at the investment conference. 10 reasons. Now, Honorable McPherson goes further and says, well, the economy is very challenged. Can you show us how you've grown since 2019 and so on? Let me make this point, that if we had to go back to 2019, and I had to address Parliament, and I had to say to members of Parliament, in the next 3-4 years, we're going to have the biggest epidemic that we've had since 1918 that would kill large numbers of people, 100,000 South Africans, millions globally, that would lead to the greatest recession, the biggest recession since the Second World War, that would physically close economies. You wouldn't believe me. If I had to go further and say, in addition to that, you're also going to have the biggest social unrest that we've had in the democracy here in South Africa. Factories burned, shops burned, physical infrastructure destroyed. You would be surprised, you'd say unlikely. If I said to you that you also have the biggest floods in living memory that swept out lives and livelihoods, you'd say, now you are perhaps smoking something, Minister, that you should not be smoking. And finally, if I had to say that there would be a war in the heart of Europe that would hike up fuel prices and fertilizer prices and food prices, you would all say, this man needs assistance. All of that has happened. They've had an impact on our economy. And in the IMF, in fact, I've heard a little heckle saying, well, why are we the only country with this problem? Actually not. The International Monetary Fund in April released its World Economic Outlook. In that World Economic Outlook, they say that by last year, 2022, which is the latest data they had available, a quarter of the world's economies had still not recovered to the level that it was by 2019 because they had the problem of COVID and the war in Ukraine. We also had floods. We also had civil unrest. And so we can play politics. We can play politics. But what South Africans are looking to us, members of the opposition, members of the ruling party, are concrete solutions, are constructive ideas. And what we've seen today from one political party is nothing of the sort. What we've seen is an interesting debate by others, and we're going to certainly take on board all of the good comments. We can play politics. We can play politics. We can say, for example, that when the ANC was in power in the Western Cape, in 2009, early 2009, before the election, the unemployment rate was 18%. Remember that, 18%. Today, it's 22% under DA rule. We can say that because the statistics show us that. But what we must do is we must be able to show South Africans that this is not about point scoring. This is about building the economy, creating jobs, promoting transformation. I have in front of me, and I'd asked the permission of the House for a bowl of Proteas to be put here. And what this is part of the Cape Floral Kingdom, the fynbos. It's something that we can be enormously proud of. It's an industry that's worth R1.5 billion. We export huge quantities of this. And we've seen now that other countries are emulating us, Australia and others. So yesterday we gazetted a protection for the trademark of Cape Flora so that we can begin to build a pride in what we do, in our people, in our flowers, in our businesses. That is what we need to do. So I'd like to conclude the debate by thanking the deputy ministers, the Director General, Mabitsi Thompson, the previous Director General, Shabir Khan. I'd like to thank also our CFO and the team at the DTIC, all of the agencies. We have a number of agencies present here today. Thank you very much. You're taking on the responsibility of working hard for South Africa. That is going to make a difference. That is how we're going to get forward as a country. That is how we're going to create jobs. Thank you very much.
Order, honorable members, on that critical note, this brings to the end the debate of today, and the mini plenary now rises. Thank you very much.
Recording stopped.